taking a while. Not sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Osquery Office Hours. It's May 25th. At least here in Boston, it's a nice day. Not too hot, not too cold. So here we go. Anyhow, welcome to Office Hours. First section is announcements. I don't think I have any announcements. I don't know if anyone else does. Okay. Next section is broad questions, issues, PRs, anything for discussion. The sort of intent here is to welcome anyone who's here from the community who maybe doesn't have a formal issue or an agenda item and just wants to talk. Mostly see the usual crowd, so might not pause too long. Okay, agenda. So a little scarce today, but the two things I wrote down, one of them is someone reported a Yara vulnerability today. And I imagine it affects us, but I'm not sure how important it is, but it'd be nice if we could fix it by 5.0. So it sounds like this is like some kind of overflow deep inside Yara that allows mumble file traversal or, mumble extract data kinds of things. I haven't really looked too hard, but my gut sense is like we don't really run a like weird Yara scanning service. So the most you could do is probably the same kind of data you could get at through the other tables that are probably in Osquery, but it still seems good to fix. So I don't know if anyone wants to take a quick look at that or something.
I don't know much more about it, but it seems that, well, the attacker can provide a malicious macro file, which means that if you're running Osquery on your employee machine, they can try to do something with the root permissions of Osquery if they can exploit it.
So if Yara scans a malicious Mako file,
yeah,
it could subvert the running Osquery permissions, which would mean that this would allow a non-administrative user to use Osquery to escalate their local permissions. So it is a worse the local privileged attack, local privilege escalation.
Yeah, definitely. After all, do run only local scans, so yeah.
My gut sense, it still seems worth fixing.
I mean,
I'm not sure how many. I know there are some unprivileged local users out there, but
I mean, at the same time, you could think this is obviously becoming more difficult, but you could think someone convincing someone else to install a specific binary again, and that binary, actually also permits you to access Osquery somehow remotely, so not necessarily local only. So yeah. Thing is, I'm not sure how easy it is to exploit, but yeah, definitely we want to update it.
I have written that down. Don't know if anyone wants to grab that. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything else about that. Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up was Osquery 5.0, which is trundling along. I think in the background, Charvel, I, and Teddy, and maybe some other people have all sort of poked a couple of things into the Osquery code signing repos. So I don't know, Charvel, you want to say anything about this state?
Yeah, so just an update. Thanks, Seth, for notarization and the provisioning profile. That'll help a lot. Teddy has been working on the S3 upload stuff on Linux side, which once he pushes that, I'll copy that. But I think S3 can be done iteratively too. And I'm hoping to have a pull request up tying all that together in a day or two, latest by end of the week. So that changes involves the location, which is /opt instead of /user local bin.
Nice.
And also the app bundle. So I'm only doing macOS right now. I think I'll still need to do the POSIX case of /opt. And yeah, that's it. I am kind of clueless about how Windows kind of ties along with that.
I don't believe there's anything to do on Windows. Windows should be dumping into like program files, mumble.
No, with the new workflow where we click the tagged release and it spits out a signed package.
I saw Nick put up a PR in that stuff, but I'm not paying much attention.
I'm like familiarizing myself with that infrastructure because last time I did this, none of that existed. So I'm working on it. It's slow and steady progress. Like I'm in a state where I can generate the packages again. There's a few things that Chocolatey wants us to change about our package generation. There were also some really good suggestions in the Windows channel about migrating the Chocolatey logic to just bundle up the MSI and like have the Chocolatey use the same MSI as the raw MSI itself, which I think is probably a good idea for centralization. But it's like that's going to take time and investigation if it's even worth doing.
Well,
but
can you tell me more about that? I was under the impression that Chocolatey packages were basically like zip files with a little metadata.
They are, but I mean, what you could do is you could have the Chocolatey package contain the MSI, and the Chocolatey install just pulls out the MSI and runs the MSI installer. This is something that like other redistributors will do. It's like, especially if you're not necessarily the package maintainer, you could write a Chocolatey package that just grabs the MSI from somewhere else, bundles it up, and installs it, right? So like if whoever builds the software package doesn't know about Chocolatey, you'd be like, hey, I'm happy to do it for you, and you could do it for them, right? And you just bundle up the MSI. And this was something that was suggested in the channel because it would help us kind of unify the infrastructure, and it might simplify some of our packaging logic. So it's worth investigating, but it's going to take extra time. But it's kind of like a side digression, something that we could investigate. But right now, I want to just migrate all of my scripting logic and packaging logic migrated over to the new way of doing things and make sure I can reliably push out new distributions, and then spend some time maybe working with Alessandro to investigate how we can get the signing working without me in the picture.
So I've got some questions about the Chocolatey thing.
Yeah.
Is that like normal? That feels weird. Maybe it's,
I agree. It feels weird. I don't know how normal it is.
Like if I said like Chocolatey install, I don't know. Should I expect it to show up in the add remove programs, or does that like get real confused and broken?
Yeah, you don't want that. I don't think that you want to be in a state where it's in both. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure the relationship between those two things. Like
add remove programs is based on the MSIs.
No, I know that. What I'm saying is I don't know the relationship between if there's a way you can have Chocolatey install an MSI and not register it with. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because you don't want to be in a state where you do the add remove programs, but it's still in the Chocolatey list, right? Like, you don't want that inconsistency. But I know that this is something that Chocolatey can do. So I don't know. Like, I'm treading in waters that I don't thoroughly understand. I know that we can do it, and from my perspective, it seemed like it'd be an easy way to centralize infrastructure. But you're like, yes, it needs investigation. I don't know if that's a good idea. Right.
My gut sense, so I might be totally wrong. I haven't looked much at the Windows packaging for Osquery in ages.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much logic we have. Like, that seems like a big win if you have a lot of complex logic in the Wix or in the MSI XML directly, right? If you installed with Wix, you can have huge amounts of like, which components do you want to install, and which things go to what locations. And if we're not doing any of that, then I don't know what logic we'd be duplicating, right? Like, we're kind of just take this zip file and put it over here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, it would really just be centralizing how we install. Like right now, we have PowerShell code that's running to manage the Osquery install for Chocolatey. Versus if we did it with the MSI, we don't need that logic. You just let Wix handle everything, and then the PowerShell logic that comes with the Chocolatey package is really just a wrapper. Like it's not huge wins. I'm not advocating we necessarily do it, but this was suggested by Johnny Ramos, and like he's much smarter at the Windows deployments generically in the world than I am. So typically, if he suggests we should investigate something, I try to investigate that thing.
I can provide an example for.
Oh, sure.
An example why I think it might be good to go with the MSI. So definitely we have some code, PowerShell code, the Osquery utils PS1 especially, to deal with the installation, setting ACLs, removing ACLs, etc.
Yeah.
And recently we had a customer that had issues with Chocolatey upgrading because it was a mix of a strange Windows installation, which was adding unexpected ACLs on the Osquery D folder, and the PowerShell script was unable to remove them because there's a pass which tries to strip all the ACLs from that folder first, and then set the safe ones. And apparently, there's a mix of issues where these ACLs start as inherited, somehow becomes explicit instead of being removed when the script tries to remove them. And then when there's the loop that tries to remove each single ACL, it comes to the ones that are application packages and application restricted packages, and hits a Win32 API bug, which doesn't let PowerShell remove those ACLs. Long story short, we have found there is a workaround, which is basically you actually construct, instead of taking the ACL from the folder, you construct them from scratch and just add the additional ACL you want. Because there was also an additional issue with that specific Windows instance, which was that it didn't like to have empty ACLs, and it would always re-add the inherited ACLs, even if inheritance was disabled. So there are weird situations where I don't believe MSI will have issues on that. And also, I think that you can install MSI without showing it on the program features at remove, because you can do an administrative install, which basically is just extracting the content of the MSI. So I think that it might be doing that Chocolatey to achieve that.
Like the Chocolatey installs, it's typically just like you tell it what command line flags to invoke the MSI with. That's what I've seen in the past, and it's very similar to doing like a deploy, right? Like if you had SCCM or something where you're trying to deploy an MSI to your company, you just say like, hey, here's the MSI, here's the flags to give it. I think Chocolatey functions very similar. And so, like that's very good to hear. Like surely there's a way you can hide it from the add remove features list if you're managing with Chocolatey.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, when I see this, and I recall that it is sort of extracting, but I don't recall at this point if it is also setting the permissions we have put via Wix, because that will be,
I'd imagine,
again, a problem.
But the logic is just running the MSI though, right? In like a quiet mode, because so in that case, it's not necessarily an extract. Well, like Chocolatey isn't doing the extraction; it's letting the MSI do the extraction the way it's kind of expected.
This all just feels like a very weird can of worms.
What the reason that I think it's like we are never going to outrun these demons of like trying to manage file permissions the way that we did on Unix-based systems, and I regret us ever making these decisions. But yeah, if we can get further and further away from us manually manipulating ACLs, that's better. That's what we should strive for, is getting to a state of like, let's just let program files handle things the way it's expected to handle them, and try not to worry about it otherwise. Because like this has caused so much strife that we're never going to get away from. So
you mean even just not You mean even not touching its apples at all? Because
I mean, that's the world I would like us to live in. But I think even just having the MSI, I get the impression that MSI is a little bit smarter about how it handles ACLs than us manually manipulating them with PowerShell and Chocolatey. So I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with the MSI manipulating the permissions as needed. But anytime, like, I don't know, anytime that we are manually invoking functionality to modify ACLs, it feels like we've had a bad time because we always miss an edge case or something comes up that just makes people have pain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in favor to remove it if there is no use of it. Just saying that, definitely we have to remove also the logic from Osquery, because the additional thing of the workaround I found is that I've seen there are installations that anyway, even if you provide these empty ACL plus your your new ACLs you want, it will still put at least the application packages and all application packages and in the all restricted application packages groups. Not every Windows instance does that, and then Osquery doesn't like it. And I also think there is actually an issue open about this, which Seth, I think, opened some time ago about those two groups and the fact that Osquery complains about them. I have to find a link. So yeah, definitely if we can simplify it.
Yeah, I don't know. My experience monkeying MSIs for launcher is that they are surprisingly subtle.
Yeah.
So I'm very leery of like packaging systems that are just like, we'll just wrap this for you. It's like big blinking danger flags.
Sure, I like the chocolatey wrapping because it's largely just run the MSI. Like it's really just a management to invoke whatever MSI you've given.
So that gets really weird across the space of whether the MSI has a UI or no UI, and whether you're in the repair flow or non-repair flow.
It does, but not for us. Like, because we control the MSI and we know how this flow is going to work.
Oh, sure,
I
but
think
like,
it's okay for us.
Do we have a UI on our MSIs?
No, I mean, yes, we do technically, but you can add in the quiet installation flows. Like, we control the MSI. We can make this go whichever way we want it to go. And for something like Osquery, we should have a quiet flag. Like, there should be a way that you can install Osquery via the MSI with no UI.
I think you just run it with the quiet flag with MSI/Q
and you need like EULA accept or something. Like, the UI we have is really there for you to just check the box that accepts the license, and that's it.
And change the path eventually. But
sure.
But probably no one.
Like, we're not relying on the UI. Like, we can get rid of the UI in effect. Like, that's not necessary. So, again, we're kind of rabbit holing here, and I think we should kind of like table this or maybe we can put this in an issue discussion. Generically, it's just that, like, this is a discussion worth having. We should investigate if it's worth it to migrate the chocolatey logic over to just wrap around the MSI, because it would centralize a lot of our installation logic to just say it's just an MSI for everything, for all of it, right?
For what it's worth, I wrote into my little minutes document here, we think this merits some investigation.
I like the way you put that.
Whether or not anyone picks this up, I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like a noble cause to me.
I think so. Cool. Any other than that, I'm going to do the best I can to have the Windows packaging stuff all prepped and ready for the 5.0 release. That was kind of all I was trying to say with some of this. So I'll shut up now.
So the big thing that we're doing for 5.0 is we're changing the code signing keys over to Osquery, at least on macOS. I took a look around for places that we could think about getting code signing keys for Windows, and I didn't have anything that really looked fabulous, and I don't know if anyone else, like, if I buy us an Osquery Windows code signing key, who should I buy it from? I found one sort of weird, crazy vendor in Poland who.
So, I mean, I'd advocate, like, I've had good experiences with DigiCert. Like, that's who we've used in the past. I've never had any problems. The identity verification mechanism was a little, involved, but it's fine. It wasn't that bad, and it's $500 a year for the code signing cert, which I feel like went up last year. But
probably. I mean,
I
so
think
for Collide, I
commonly
buy
used.
from Komodo. So like
Sure,
I
that
would
would
consider
also be
buying from Komodo, mostly because they're a little cheaper.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now Sectago. The crazy vendor in Poland has an even cheaper open source project, and interestingly has a couple of weird like cloud linkage things, which I'm kind of like I wince at. I'm like, is this good? Is this bad? But ultimately, if they're trusted by Microsoft, does it matter?
Yeah, Microsoft trusts a lot of people. I would push for having a code signing vendor that's at least known. Like if it's somebody that's off in Poland that nobody's ever heard of, I'd be wary of it. I'd say like, can we do
just because I've never heard of them
Komodo?
Doesn't mean they're not like well known across all of the
point.
EU.
Absolutely fair point. Like maybe other people are super familiar, but I would say like, can we try to? Maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but I think it'd be worth the money if we could go with someone of a little bit more repute.
Does Azure or AWS provide signing certs by any chance? No? Okay. Because that would make this a lot easier.
It seems to me that the top priority is just that it's a cert trusted by Microsoft and doesn't trigger authenticode. But okay. I mean, honestly, I despite that, I think I'm with Nick. Like, why don't we just pick one of the two vendors that folks have had positive experiences with and just do that? And if it costs a couple $100 extra, like, we'll make it work.
Okay, I can try and get us a Komodo cert.
Komodo, that'd be good. I would really love that if we're going to change the code signing cert for Mac OS, that we do it for Windows as well. Like, it'd be awesome if we could just do all of this at once. So, like, if you need my time, I will make time for this. Like, whatever we need to do to get Windows to a state where we can do that as well. Let's make it happen.
So, if I can get us a cert, I will just drop it into the appropriate cert locations and then kind of like back away slowly.
Okay. All right. And then we get, hopefully that'll be sufficient and we can just go from there.
I mean, I'm happy to help, of course, but I kind of don't know the state of the Windows packaging flows.
Right. I just know the code. I think Alessandro might have more insight, or maybe somebody else does, on like what else would be expected of us if we had it in the right place. I can provide scripts that I normally use for doing this.
So at a high level, we have things split a little confusingly into two repositories. And Alessandro knows more of the details. So does Charvel probably at this point. All right. We have the Osquery packaging repository, which is where all of the CPAC code now lives. And then there's the Osquery code signing repository, which is where the actual keys and key signing stuff lives. So it's a little bit of like which one is triggering the build, gets you a signed or an unsigned package. And I don't know. I don't know which.
I think if you get the keys in the right place, it'll be clear. I'm sure. Like it'll make sense how to go from there.
Okay, I'll try and get us a Komodo cert.
Okay.
That sort of reminds me, we should also do a better job of doing a developer-focused documentation about this, since this is all kind of a newer workflow.
Definitely.
It's on my list to do, but I haven't gotten around to it. But again, I haven't done anything other than Mac OS. So
sure, I took a really quick, horrible stab at making a README in the Osquery packaging repo. I threw it up for PR. It's not done. Like, it needs more work. But considering these are repos for the developers, I would say, can we be in a state of just accepting half-baked stuff and like iterate on it and just keep. Like, even if it's garbage.
Did I approve your? I might have approved your PRs.
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to like look at those yet. I'm gonna make time, either like at the end of this week, to spend some more time with the Osquery packaging stuff. But
if I didn't approve them, it's only because you said that you were still working on it.
Still working on it. All right.
It is. Cool.
All right.
I'm totally in favor of iterative approaches, especially on READMEs, scripts, docs, everything. So I will actually read and approve them, or comment if I don't think it's approvable.
I can at least get it updated because it's just a README. I can get it updated tonight. I can spend some time on like cleaning it up and getting it ready. Cool. Thanks.
For the certificate, Seth, you are able to retrieve the funds, correct?
I haven't tried.
Okay, so, well, anyway, if we have to collect money for the certificate, let me know.
I kind of don't want to talk about what I spend on Osquery right now.
Yeah, but I mean, we should contribute.
Yeah, and I should actually. It would be better for us as a project if we made those expenses visible. There's a whole lot of things that I just sort of in the background, and I don't love that. Some of it is sort of inherently transitional, though, so kind of roll with it.
I'd say please file those so that people can see that money's actually going to things. And if there's not enough money to cover them, I can work on getting Fleet to put some money in, or I'll put some money in personally. But in any case, I think you're right. It's not visible if you're paying for it out of pocket, Seth, and so and that prevents us from being able to raise the money to get to it.
Mm-hmm. One thing, so we're talking about certs. There's a couple of caveats. One of them is code signing certificate got a lot nicer in the last year. Prior to this year, code signing vendors required you use out-of-date web browsers and go through an in-browser P12 generation flow using like the KeyX protocol that's been deprecated for 5 years. It was horrific. Now you can actually just generate them with OpenSSL, so it's great. That's a nice footnote. Less nice footnote is almost certainly, so we are unlikely to be able to get an EV certificate reasonably, and I don't want to touch EV certificates with a 10-foot pole, which means we're going to get a standard certificate. Standard certificates will trigger Authenticode pop-ups. They will trigger, not Authenticode pop-ups. What's the other one?
UAC?
Yeah.
Something under UAC, because we won't have reputation.
Smart screen.
Smart screen, thank you.
That little, smart screen.
So we trigger this is like, I don't remember how it's phrased, but this is a valid certificate from an untrusted developer. And that happens until you get some number of people who click, this is cool.
We have a lot of Windows shops, right? Is there any way we could leverage some companies or some people to help us build some rep for a cert?
It'll just happen organically. The number of people or amount of time is undocumented and unknown.
Right. Mine, when I got mine to this state, it must have gone pretty quickly.
Yours might also have predated this change.
Maybe. I'm not sure, because I didn't start doing this until a bit late. Like the Osquery Windows binaries were unsigned for
when
a
was
good
your
amount of time.
cert issued though? Like how old is Nick at Facebook at FB.com? It's a Windows cert.
It's changed, man. Like they screwed up my name a couple of times, so I'm surprised it's not.
Then maybe it's just always gone fast. I mention it because this is the reality. Like you can't dodge this unless you shell out for EV cert.
Right.
And EV certs are tied to hardware.
But it's important to note. But I'm curious to see in practice how long it takes for us to get past that.
I believe the first Collide cert got past that real fast. Oddly, it reset on renewal, but maybe it shouldn't have. And the renewal also had to go through it, and the renewal took longer. So, I don't know.
I guess we'll find out. Hopefully, we'll find out.
Okay, I can probably get us a Komodo sec to go cert pretty fast.
Sweet.
We'll see. I have no idea what verifying the business identity of Osquery is going to look like.
Yeah, I'd say just make sure you have any documentation you can about the Linux Native Foundation membership or something.
Yeah,
like that, because
I've got most of it from when I did the Apple cert.
Yeah, they want an address, and I don't know.
I have our legal address.
All right, great, awesome.
I have our business
Be
filings.
fine, man. Yeah, you should be.
Yeah,
fine.
we just did DigiCert, and they send you a code via physical mail.
Okay. Cool.
That would be terrible, but I know Sectigo didn't do that. So. Oh, maybe we'll have to figure this out. Oh, yuck. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Hit me up when you get it. Or if you need any help, let me know, man. I'm happy to give cycles to this.
I think I just have to go play the legal game to run it down. And probably any cycles you have are best spent integrating your build and sign toolchain into the existing repos.
All right, I'll prioritize that then.
Because we can always swap keys out.
Sure. Yeah. It should be easy.
I guess the other question is, if you're comfortable sticking your key into GitHub, you may not be, like, this is a very soft ask.
I'm fine with it.
We can put your key there to develop the workflow, or maybe we can use a self-signed key. Maybe we can just use a self-signed key. I don't know enough to know.
I have left a self-signed key for now.
Oh, well, then we can just build workflows on a self-signed key. We don't
It should
need
be
to
working now.
Sure.
Yeah, someone has to verify.
Sounds good. All right.
That's cool. Good enough.
Cool.
Don't know if anyone's got any other questions.
For 5.0, are we targeting a date? Because we might need a couple of more days for extra testing than usual, given the newer way of doing things.
We had talked about either June 1 or June 15. I don't think anyone's going to be super sad if that delays. We're already at May 25. I don't think we're going to hit a June 1 date. The 5.8 did kind of come in the middle. So, I think we mostly just picked June 1 to have a date last time we talked about it. If it pushes, then it pushes. We don't have strong commitments to anyone.
Oh, this maybe are minor, but there are also a couple of other libraries that might need to be updated. These are Linux side, and these were actually reported earlier than Yara. Apparently, the LZ4 implementation inside libRd Kafka has vulnerability, and also the file implementation, or I would say, file implementation or libmagic has another CV inside. I don't recall specifically. So, how much we are impacted by it, let's say. Maybe in the case of libmagic, it is something similar to Yara, in the sense that we can only we are only using it to on local files, not anything remote. While with libRd Kafka, we are using it as a remote communication library. So
was that librz inside libkafka or LZ?
Oh, this was LZ4. There is an implementation. They have copied.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just writing it down and I didn't hear the words.
Oh yeah, no problem. Let me also link you the issues.
If someone is up for PRing upgrades to those, I think we should do it. Do you think, do folks think any of these merit creating GitHub security issues?
I'm not sure, in the sense. I'm not sure because I'm not sure how these are. How these are impacting specifically, or if they are exploitable in any way.
We don't have to create GitHub security issues. We could just fix them.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what is the policy normally. I would expect. For sure, if there's something that has been either we find or someone is reporting to us that there is specific way to exploit Osquery, then yeah, we should definitely issue one of those. But
I don't know if we have a formal policy of when we create a GitHub security thing.
yeah,
I'm not even sure what best practice would be. Like it feels easy to sort of fall on either extreme of like, let's not do it unless we know it's exploitable, versus like, let's do it for everything that could be a bug. Is like one of them is just going to be overwhelming, and the other one clearly emits things. So I don't know what the middle ground is. Sounds like some bugs we should fix. Okay. Anything else people want to talk about?
Once we update the dependencies, do we plan on releasing a new point release?
I wasn't going to. If you think it's important, then we absolutely can. But my assumption was that, I don't know. What do y'all think?
We should probably try to determine the severity. But in general, people usually use the Black Duck software to scan for things, and they may not necessarily understand whether these issues are high or low severity. So we could just release a point release either way.
Well, but is there, like, it's work for us. So is there much value in releasing a point release versus just saying it's fixed in Osquery 5, scheduled release dates in N weeks?
Yeah, without determining the severity, it's hard to tell. But if we do release a point release, people will not file an issue for Black Duck findings.
Close them as duplicates of the existing ones.
I don't really expect those dependencies to be hard to update. So we'll try to take a look at it, and it is not much work to release. We can consider it.
I'm good for that. Very much just a wait and see approach.
So do we have an issue that tracks the libraries we have to update?
I don't think we have a single issue, but there are issues for these 3 libraries.
All right, that's perfect, thanks.
I can toss them all into the Osquery 5.0 milestone if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll do that.
I was quickly checking the LZ4 is a heap buffer overflow on a compression routine. This is what's inside librd Kafka. I mean, if it is the compression side, I'm not entirely sure what you can really do about it. I mean, if it was the decompression side, I could expect someone externally feeding you data that you then decompress and you exploit. So the exploit is indeed the compression, but
the exploit is on a compromised is on a malicious libkafka endpoint. So if you have your Osquery to push logs to a libkafka endpoint, and that libkafka endpoint is malicious, so like it seems much worse in the invert of that, right? Whereas if you had a libkafka server that was accepting public connections and was exploitable, so like fundamentally this should only be happening. Like you're already talking about a trusted endpoint. Unless maybe it can also bypass a server verification or something.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, I think that if it is the compression side, which I think it's the client doing it, and I don't think that the input is not trusted, that shouldn't be issue. I think there is less issue if it than if it was a decompress. If the issue was on the decompress side, but yeah.
Aren't we compressing data that comes from users?
But they're the users of the machine Osquery is running on.
Maybe it depends on the kind of table we are.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's just that there are more layers possibly in between, and the possibility of actually fully controlling the input maybe is less. I don't know. Yeah, it depends on the specifics of the issue. The file one seems something about CDF. Something about, I'm not sure what is CDF.
Yeah, maybe you can consider this in the channel as we try to take a look at them. Maybe write some documentation for us.
I mean, I think it's worth fixing all of them, and I guess the only reason to quantify how severe they are is to try and understand whether we think we should cut a point release. My kind of gut sense is like, not to put too fine a point on it, but I don't really want us to do a bunch of work that feels wasteful or feels needless for something that is theoretically exploitable in a very narrow, undetermined thing. So, might not be the best answer, but it's kind of my gut sense. Okay, so we do actually have a 490 milestone, and I have added all of these to the 490 milestone. This does not mean that we are going to release 490, merely that we have a 490 milestone that will get subsumed by 5.0. Okay. Other issues? Anything people want to bring up?
Not an issue, but thanks for looking into the Chrome extensions identifier.
Thanks for fixing it.
I had to see a review of the code, so I will make the change on the column after the meeting.
Or, you could argue about it, but it seemed like we should just update that. Yeah, I was really happy that I found what looked like really simple code.
Yeah, it is. And it makes sense to change the column. I mean, I was making an alias just to replicate the old behavior, and why not just follow your advice and rename the column?
Yeah. So anything else fun and exciting? I feel like I always have this backlog of things I haven't fixed, but that's what it is. Some people saw I fixed homebrew on the M1s. So I know Sharpel saw that.
Yeah, thanks. I tested it. Works great.
Worked on my machine. Anything people really wish we fixed? Because everyone here is empowered to fix it, but Okay. Well, I think probably that's it. I'll have 10 minutes back. So thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. See you, Zach.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.